the NBA off-season moves so far, couple of major trades that has transpired in the NBA in the early part of the offseason. The Warriors traded Jordan Poole for Chris Paul, and the Celtics traded away Marcus Smart for the services of Kristaps Porzingis. And so I want to talk about the Warriors first. Obviously, the Warriors had to move off of Jordan Poole. We knew and heard all season long about how the Warriors locker room wasn't the same, and the Warriors struggled to meet on the road last year because Draymond Green couldn't really be himself last year because of the altercation that took place with Jordan Poole last year before the season started. So I felt like last year, Draymond Green couldn't really be that leader that we've known him to be in that Warriors locker room because he was trying to make things better with Jordan Poole and trying to mend fences and make things better overall. So I kind of felt like last year that was the reason why the Golden State Warriors struggled the way they did on the road. I mean, they were a pathetic road team last year. They lost road games to teams that they usually would blow out on a road in years prior. So they struggled significantly on the road. And I just feel like that was because Draymond Green couldn't be that leader that we're accustomed to seeing him be in that Warriors locker room. And so in the playoffs, despite them beating the Kings, I thought that in the Lakers series, it caught up to the Warriors and them not having the necessary chemistry to go on a deep playoff run. I underestimated the dynamic in the locker room with Draymond Green and Jordan Poole because I had the Warriors going back to the NBA Finals. I did. And I underestimated that dynamic. And that's a very, very important dynamic. So I understand why the Warriors moved off of Jordan Poole. They had to. And you're assuming Draymond Green is going to re-sign back in Golden State. He declined his player option a few days ago, but more than likely he's going to re-sign back in Golden State. There's reports about how the Mavs, I believe, the Blazers, and the Kings are all interested in Draymond Green's services, but I can't see Draymond Green leaving Golden State. So I feel like in order for the chemistry to be back in that locker room, you have to remove Jordan Poole because think about it. These are players playing for a sports team, but they are also human beings. And Steph and Clay been cool with Draymond for years. They've been cool with Draymond for years. And so Jordan Poole was a new kid on the block, and he hadn't proven himself in that Golden State Warriors organization the way that Draymond Green has proved himself and helped the Warriors become a dynasty and win 4 championships during this dynasty. Jordan Poole doesn't have the clout or the cachet that Draymond Green has for the Golden State Warriors. So I feel like it was an easy decision for general manager Mike Dunleavy, new general manager Mike Dunleavy, and the Golden State Warriors and Steve Kerr to move off of Jordan Poole. Also, Jordan Poole had a lot of issues with turning the basketball over. He was very, very inconsistent. And this year in the playoffs, he wasn't that good. He was not very good for the Warriors this year in the playoffs. Last year, he helped them win the NBA championship. And I thought he was a major piece in helping them being able to capture a championship off the bench. But this year, it just did not work. And so they bring in Chris Paul. And for me, when I saw that Chris Paul got traded to the Warriors, my initial thought was, this is not a good fit. Because Chris Paul is the kind of player that likes to run a lot of pick and rolls. The Warriors are one of the teams in the NBA that don't run pick and roll action a lot. They don't run a lot of pick and roll action. They are a ball screen basketball team. They run a lot of screens to get Clay and Steph open. And so I'm thinking, like, how in the hell is this going to work? Because Chris Paul is more of a half court type of guard. He doesn't play at a fast pace. And now he's 38. He's 38, so he damn sure ain't playing at a high pace. And so I'm thinking, like, how is this going to work? Because Chris Paul also is not the kind of player, considering his accomplishments, who's going to like the idea of coming off the bench. You look at Chris Paul in his career. This is regular season and playoffs. Chris Paul has started in 1,363 games in his career. He has never came off the bench. So I'm thinking, you're not going to bench Steph. And so how is Chris Paul going to buy into this idea of coming off the bench? Because I don't really like him and Steph Curry on the floor together. I don't like that dynamic. And so that's something I thought about as well. I'm like, I just don't see it. Maybe this is a move that's going to be the first move that's going to lead them to another move, because I don't understand how this can work. Now, maybe if the Warriors sign Brook Lopez in free agency and they have Brook Lopez come off the bench with Chris Paul with the second unit, maybe that could work if Chris Paul buys into the idea of coming off the bench. But other than that, I just don't see Chris Paul, Steph Curry being a fit. And then these are rivals. We got to remember, Steph Curry and Chris Paul are rivals. The same way we look at other players and how they ride. Like, we've seen other players like Kobe and Metta World Peace team up with each other. I think this is a different dynamic because they play the same position, and B, Steph is significantly better right now than Chris Paul is. At least with Kobe and Metta World Peace, we knew who the star was when Metta decided to join the Lakers. It was Kobe's team. It was Kobe's team. And so Metta was never on the level of a Kobe Bryant. Chris Paul, in his own right, is a Hall of Fame player. And he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Fame player. Now, right now, Steph is better than Chris Paul is, but Chris Paul sees himself on the same level as Steph Curry. Metta didn't see himself on the same level as Kobe. So I feel like it's going to be a tough transition for Chris Paul to accept coming off the bench and Steph Curry being the starting point guard for the Golden State Warriors. It's going to be a tough adjustment for Chris. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how it can work. I really don't. And then on top of that, a few years ago, Draymond Green flat out came out and said he doesn't like Chris Paul. He flat out said it. So I don't know how it could work. I don't see it really working. Maybe Chris Paul is dealt by the trading deadline to another team, but I just don't see how Chris Paul fits with the Warriors. I don't. I love Chris Paul and Golden State. He helped stabilize the team during times when Poole would have been messy and throwing off the momentum. I don't see it working. I don't. I get where you're coming from. I just don't know if Chris Paul is going to be able to accept that coming off the bench role. He's been a starter his entire career. And again, he views himself on the same level as Steph. Because I hear everybody talking about other players who were rivals who ended up on the same team. Kobe Bryant and Matt Barnes. Kobe Bryant and Metta World Peace. Make no mistake about it. Metta World Peace and Matt Barnes were never on the same level as the Black Mamba. So they knew their roles when they came into the building. Chris Paul views himself on the same level as Steph. Now, we know Steph Curry is better than Chris Paul is from a legacy standpoint, but Chris Paul doesn't believe that. So I think it's going to be a tough adjustment. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Now, let's go to Boston. The Celtics, they acquired Kristaps Porzingis and dealt Marcus Smart to the Memphis Grizzlies. So when it comes to the Boston Celtics, I do feel like the Boston Celtics got better moving Marcus Smart and bringing in Kristaps Porzingis because Kristaps Porzingis fits Joe Mazzulla's system. I feel like the Boston Celtics and their general manager, Brad Stevens, they have made a decision to build the personnel from a player standpoint around Joe Mazzulla's system and players who can fit into his system. And I think Kristaps Porzingis will fit perfectly into Joe Mazzulla's system. The whole three-point shooting. Remember last year, the Celtics shot a lot of threes last year. They live and die by the three last year. And bringing in a player the likes of Kristaps Porzingis, you're doubling down on being a three-point shooting team. So I like the move. I think offensively, they're going to be able to score a lot of points with Kristaps, with Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. I think Kristaps can help you also defensively because Kristaps is over 7 feet tall. He's a solid rim protector. So him and Robert Williams in the interior for the Celtics will make the Celtics a better defensive basketball team. Al Horford's getting old. I love Al. He's a great veteran. He's done a lot of things in this league. But Al Horford, he shot great in the regular season from three, but he was pathetic in the playoffs shooting from the three. He couldn't throw the basketball in the ocean. He was awful. So I think the Celtics will upgrade inserting Kristaps Porzingis into the starting lineup, and the big three of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kristaps Porzingis is a solid big three to me. And assuming no other moves are made, I believe that the Boston Celtics are the favorites in the Eastern Conference going into the next season. I do. I really feel like that. I feel like, too, there were times in years prior where Marcus Smart, because of his personality, there were things that Marcus Smart did that I felt like Jason Tatum should have done. And for whatever reason, he didn't do it. Like, Marcus Smart was the leader for the Boston Celtics, and the Celtics needed Jason Tatum to be the leader and show that leadership and take over late in games. Now that Marcus Smart is out the building, maybe Jason Tatum will realize, A, I'm the best player on this team, and B, in the fourth quarter, the ball needs to be in my hands. You don't have Marcus Smart now who's going to take late game shots. Those late game shots will be taken from Jason Tatum. And he has to take on the responsibility of understanding that he is the best player and the leader of this Boston Celtics basketball team. Marcus Smart was the heart and soul of the Celtics, just like Draymond of the Dubs. Both teams will suffer in their absence. I do agree that Marcus Smart was the heart and soul of the Celtics, but I also feel like taking Marcus Smart away from the Boston Celtics, if Jason Tatum takes on the responsibility of being the leader and being the best player for this Boston Celtics team, it will help them reach the NBA Finals and ultimately win an NBA championship. They got to the finals last year with Marcus Smart, and Jason Tatum was not showing that leadership. So I feel like now that Smart's out the door, now Tatum has no choice but to step up and be a leader in that locker room and be more vocal. Be more vocal. That was Marcus Smart's role in years prior on the Boston Celtics. He was the vocal leader. Now it should be Jason Tatum. It has to be. It got to be Jason Tatum. And when it comes to Marcus Smart and the Memphis Grizzlies, though, I like Marcus Smart on the Memphis Grizzlies, but I don't love it. And the reason why I don't love it is because they got more grittier, but I feel like the Grizzlies need more of a finesse player who can create off the dribble. And I don't know. Like they did get better defensively because I know that Marcus Smart can play some great defense. He's a defensive specialist. Ja Morant's going to be out for the first 25 games of the season. So they got better defensively, but I don't know if they needed more grit. That's what Marcus Smart is. He's the like my man Dylan said, he's the heart and soul. He was the heart and soul of the Celtics. And so he's going to bring heart and grit to the Memphis Grizzlies, but I'm not so sure that that's what the Memphis Grizzlies need right now. I'm not sure that's what they need. I do think that he can help Ja Morant as an individual and kind of show him and teach him like, man, like this is how you conduct yourself in the NBA as a player. I do think he can do that for sure. But like I said, I don't love the move. I like it for Memphis. I don't think it makes Memphis worse. I don't like Memphis having to give up Tyus Jones. That was the previous guard that they had who backed up Ja Morant. I love Tyus Jones. Remember last year and years prior when Ja Morant was out, the Grizzlies had a winning record because of Tyus Jones. He was the best backup point guard in the NBA. In this deal, he got moved to Washington. I don't like that for the Memphis Grizzlies. Grizzlies are a mess. I like Smart Theory, but I also don't love it. Agreed. I like him in Memphis, but I don't love it. I just feel like they need more finesse, more like a player that can create his own shot off the dribble. Because to me, the only players on their team who can create off the dribble consistently is Desmond Bane and Ja Morant. I would have rather the Grizzlies go out and get another player who can create off the dribble, even if it's a guard, maybe even if it's a three, maybe a 3-and-D player, a forward. Jaren Jackson is getting better. He's definitely getting better, but we'll see what happens. But those are my thoughts on the moves made by the Warriors, Grizzlies, and Boston Celtics.